Hey guys, how you doing? I'm doing okay. Where were you back in 1993? September 20th, 1993. Who was the president in 1993? Did we even pay attention to what was going on in politics in Washington, in our country, at the southern border? Did we notice? Did we care? Well, I never paid that much attention to what was going on. Maybe I should have.
If making it easy to be an illegal alien isn't enough, how about offering a reward for being an illegal immigrant? No sane country would do that, right? Guess again.
I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
What happened to those people? Wait a second. They're still here. They've totally flipped on an issue that has not gone away. How are they getting away with this? It's called politics, and right now it is not to their advantage. Tommy Lahren is the host of Fox Nation. Go to foxnation.com to figure out more about it. Tommy, you're joining us today from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles has certainly had an immigration problem in the past. What do you make of these Democrats who, back in the day, were for essentially the same thing that Donald Trump is saying?
Well, Democrats don't just hope. They will ensure that the migrant caravans of today are the voters of tomorrow. So they are absolutely using these people as political weapons, political footballs, in order to get votes. And it's the detriment of not only Americans, but legal immigrants. It's about time we call them on it. We repeat those sound bites that they said long ago, and we ask them why their position has changed. Why do they now place illegal immigrants over legal immigrants and Americans? It's about time they answer for that.
Tommy, what needs to happen now when it comes to immigration reform?
Well, you know how I feel about a wall and physical barriers, and it seems as though Hillary Clinton also feels the same way about a physical barrier to stop people. Listen, what we're seeing now with this migrant caravan, it's not a caravan, it's an invasion. We have every right to be able to protect our borders. And yes, physical barriers do work. I've spent time with the Border Patrol. I've seen what they go through. Although they have great technology, when you have a physical barrier, you're able to reallocate resources in other places where a physical barrier isn't possible. You're able to stop a lot of that illegal immigration. So that, first and foremost, you need to gain the trust of the American people, and building a wall is a first step to do that, and then we can deal with the people that are already here. But that wall has to be first.
Now, when Democrats and Republicans agreed on the getting rid of chain migration, agreed on the need to build a barrier, agreed that illegal immigrants should not have full access to our country unimpeded, and because it's not fair to people waiting online, we still couldn't get immigration done. We are actually moving away from each other. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, made it clear, this caravan coming here, unacceptable.
To those who say this is a hard-hearted stance, let's not forget that the United States is a historically generous nation when it comes to immigration. Over 33 million people total are currently here who have immigrated to this country legally. To those who want to come here legally. Legal immigration is the surest way to obtain the better life you're looking for here in the United States of America. From a security standpoint, there is no proper accounting of who these individuals in the caravan are, and this poses an unacceptable security risk to the United States.
Yeah, Tommy, here we are. This is the caravan. I don't hear a word from Democrats. Why?
Well, Democrats have been able to effectively control this narrative that border enforcement, border security, law enforcement, immigration law is somehow bigoted and intolerant. And unfortunately, as I've seen many times when I've gone to West Hollywood, which we know is really the bastion of liberalism in California, even those in West Hollywood tell me that they believe in border security enforcement, but they don't want to seem intolerant, so they won't say a word about it. That's a problem. And the only person that can effectively change that narrative is Donald Trump. And so I believe going into the midterms, I don't think that this migrant caravan is going to hurt Republicans or Donald Trump, because I think it's going to make Americans realize what's at stake, and they're going to come out and they're going to vote for border security and enforcement.
So you're saying that the president, when he said earlier that the midterm's all about the caravan and Kavanaugh, you're saying that's accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Because although the Democrats believe that somehow this is going to help them with their emotional pleas, there are so many Americans out there that are seeing this, that they feel like this is an invasion, they feel like this is a slap in the face to the United States and our rule of law, and they're going to come out and they're going to vote against it, because even in California, people are sick and tired of this.
And Tommy.
When you look at that massive group of people on the bridge, when you saw it on the bridge, group, I really think that it probably spells out to us and Congress, something has to be done. We'll have to call up our military if we need to. But we can't let this happen. We cannot allow our country to be violated like this.
All right, there you've got the President of the United States yesterday in the Oval Office talking about the caravan. Kellyanne Conway is a counselor to the President of the United States. She joins us from the North Lawn. Kellyanne, so much has been made of this caravan of about 7,000, and now it sounds like there's a second one that is parked in Guatemala, and I think there's 2,500 there. What is going on?
Well, the caravan is a symbol of broken promises and failed policies by the Democrats. Every single Democratic senator has signed on to the Feinstein idea for open borders. And as you have President Obama fecklessly and recklessly trying to take credit for the Trump economy, he ought to take credit or blame for what we're seeing happening at our southern border, because they did absolutely nothing to curb the influx of illegal immigrants coming over this border. And look, I'm, equal parts compassion and titanium, and I will tell you that I fear that many of the Honduran nationals were promised things that won't be delivered, given I think promises that can't be fulfilled by the coyotes charging them so much money, or the other folks not telling them what a treacherous journey this could be. You see that the new statistics show that over 500,000 people tried to cross the border illegally last year, and we have this increase in families trying to cross over, but we don't always know that they're family units. You can have one male grabbing someone else's kid and pretending they're a family unit. And I'm very concerned that even one of those happens, and you know darn well dozens and dozens, if not more, of that is happening. The child smuggling, the drug smuggling. We have a right to know who is coming into and who is in our country, and this is the president's entire point. The Democrats, they don't act. They went for all the photo ops when they thought they're down at the southern border a couple of months ago. They are completely radio silent on this. Secretary Pompeo is absolutely right. We are the world's most generous nation when it comes to immigration. Over 33 million people have immigrated here legally, many we all know, and people should try to do that legally.
Senator Schumer talked in the past about the need to stop illegal aliens from coming in here. Senator Harry Reid once talked about the idiocy of chain migration, how ridiculous it is. Barack Obama in 2005 talked about you can't just walk into our country unencumbered because it's not fair to the people that are here. What happened, Kellyanne? Did people not know that there were VCRs rolling, that we knew where they stood? What changed?
Well, it's delicious, and we know it changed. Donald Trump got elected, and got elected overwhelmingly in some states because of issues like this. He's saying that we're a sovereign nation. We need physical borders, and we need to know who is here. You can immigrate legally, and also this president has been very forthright for over 3 years now, talking about not just the people coming in illegally, but the drugs that are pouring into our country. 90% of heroin coming into this country comes through our southern border. We have increases in cocaine coming in. Now fentanyl. Folks, mark it down. Learn the word fentanyl, responsible for 30,000 American deaths just last year. It's coming in increasingly through our southern border, being manufactured in China. But this is the president's talking about the poison coming into our communities through the southern border, and it needs to stop. This is a failure of the Democrats to not act, and the president, my boss, last January in the cabinet room for 1 hour on live TV, said he would do a deal on the Dreamers. He wanted to end chain migration, end the visa lottery system, get that wall built, and he would do a deal on the Dreamers. And you know what? The Democrats never thought he'd make good on that. He called their bluff yet again. They walked away from the table, never to be heard of again.
Kellyanne, when you look at these caravans of individuals that are walking up, if you calculate how long it's going to take them, they'll be up to our border in a few weeks. And I know that Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator Mike Lee sent a letter. We have a copy of the letter right here to Kristen Nielsen with Homeland Security asking, they have a solution. They said that like we have done in the past in 2002 with Canada, maybe this would work with Mexico. It would require the migrants to stop in Mexico and seek asylum there, and Mexico would have to agree to do that. Will it work?
Well, Mexico has been very cooperative here, and I want to make that clear. They've offered to, I think it's grant temporary visas or grant asylum there, but as I understand it, many in the caravan are just pushing forward and refusing that, which means they're probably, the majority of them, it's estimated, are economic migrants, not those who have a credible fear of asylum. And that's very instructive here, too, to my other points. But we have to try what's been tried in the past. At least you have Republican senators, like the two you just mentioned, trying to solve the problem. You've got Democrats out there running for 2020. They've done absolutely nothing in 2018 to secure our borders, to keep us drug-free and safe. They all voted against tax cuts that are stimulating our economy, unbelievable record economy. The blue-collar wages are up, wages for everybody are up, unemployment is down, optimism is surging. The stock market, the fundamentals are still strong under the Trump economy. I mean, did you see Kamala Harris yesterday? She was at some college in Iowa for an event, and about 12 people were in the picture. 12? It's like, I can invite you over for dinner tonight and have more people. So and you know why? Because they're trying to sell things that nobody is buying. Why isn't she at the border saying, folks, let's come in legally? I agree with President Obama from 2005. I think every candidate should be asked, do you agree or disagree with President Obama from 2005? He's out there trying to take credit for a Trump economy. You know what? To quote President Obama from 2004, he didn't build this. He didn't build that economy. President Trump did, and everybody knows it.
You know, Kellyanne, the Democrats would rather talk about health care because they think that's a winner for them and not immigration.
Well, they're wrong there, too. 20 million Americans, it's estimated, still don't have any type of health insurance 8.5 years after Obamacare. It was a disaster for many Americans. This president has put forth associated health plans, short-term duration plans. Drug prices are going down. Today he's signing historic legislation on the opioid crisis.
That's what I wanted to
HR
ask
6.
you about.
Incredible. It passed 98-1 in the United States Senate the same week the Kavanaugh vote was happening. So think about that, the most hyper-partisan, divided week on Capitol Hill since we've gotten here. And yet this president's leadership forged the most historic, comprehensive, single piece of legislation on any one drug crisis in our nation's history. There's more money in there. There's increasing access to treatment, more for law enforcement interdiction, strengthen those penalties against high-level drug traffickers, but help those babies. We have 150 newborns coming into this world every day, into this country every day, struggling for their first breaths. A great issue that our First Lady has elevated into the fore. It's a big day here at the White House, bipartisan legislation.
Bipartisan. I think the country needs to see it. Will there be a Democrat represented there for the formal signing ceremony?
Yes, there is a Democratic senator who is coming. I know many are out on the campaign trail, and maybe others don't want to come to the White House. But, boy, are we glad that senators' names, just hypothetically speaking, Warren and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Joe Manchin, others came forward and voted for this opioid package. Every single Democratic senator voted for a law that President Trump will sign in, and would not have happened without his leadership. He has elevated the opioid and drug crisis from day one of his administration. Lives are being saved. The number of first prescriptions are going down from 30 pills to 5 or 7. Yesterday, our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, noted that overdose deaths are plateauing. They're leveling off. It's still a crisis, and it's a crisis next door because it does not discriminate by race or gender or age or socioeconomic status or geography. But we're increasing access to treatment. We're backing the blue. We're getting more of this fentanyl out of our country. And there's a great, let me say one last feature in this. Our U.S. Postal Service now must provide to Customs and Border Protection for every package coming into this country, including from China and Mexico, advanced electronic data. That's going to cut down on these illegal
Absolutely.
drugs like fentanyl coming in here.
Right, Kelly, and you did great work, too. The president asked you to lead, and you did. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kellyanne.
Have a great day.
You too.
Now, Bernie Sanders is for open or rather non-existent borders. Okay? Okay. President Trump closed the borders as soon as the coronavirus broke out. And Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders and all the rest of Democrats are for not having borders, the absence of borders, and the opposite of closed is open, right? If there's a door, right, it's either open or closed. If there's no, and also there is either a door or there's not a door. Okay, so therefore delegitimizing border crossings. And this was said throughout the debates before the coronavirus broke out. Now, you just previously saw that long line of people trying to get into this country. You also heard it said that the fentanyl has been coming from China. Okay. So, how do we know that the fentanyl that people, Americans, have been taking that came from China, how do we know that did not bring out or break out the coronavirus? Right? And so, I'll get to one other thing about this in a moment. But first, they were talking about delegitimizing the border crossings. You saw the huge swarm of people trying to cross that bridge. Right? Now, they were talking about the coronavirus and what he would do differently. Now, he's going to be asked about the border in the same context as the coronavirus.
Going to move on to the next audience question, but if you had to, would you close down the borders?
No. I mean, what you don't want to do right now, we have a president who has propagated xenophobic, anti-immigrant sentiment from...
That is not true. That is not true. He is anti-illegal immigrant, not anti-immigrant. This is where Bernie Sanders is in this delusion. Okay, I don't know where he gets these ideas from. But the president is against illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, not legal immigration. He's not anti-immigrant. He's anti-illegal immigrant. Illegal aliens. You saw that at the beginning. And xenophobic, Mr. Sanders, we already covered that in previous videos. It is not a bad thing to fear strangers. However, now that we got a coronavirus in our country, is xenophobia a bad thing? Being in physical contact, being in close proximity to other people. Is that wise or is that reckless? He is still pushing that President Trump is xenophobic, and yet now we have to be a certain type of xenophobe to be afraid of physical contact with other people. Self-quarantine, isn't that a little xenophobic? Think about it. Think about it. Fear of people or fear of strangers. Now, because of this coronavirus, and all public events are canceled. All schools are closed. Hardly anything is open. People are told to stay off work, not to come into work. And President Trump just recently worked with the banks and seeing about helping those who should not go to work. And I want to say one thing, I didn't include this here, but Bernie Sanders keeps, and Juan Williams on the 5 keeps repeating this erroneous statement that Trump made, or erroneous understanding of what Trump said when he said, if you're feeling sick, stay home. When you feel better, go to work. But Bernie Sanders, Juan Williams, and others have misinterpreted, misunderstood, like I said many times. Understanding, listening, and understanding. Understanding is the most important aspect of communication. If you do not understand it correctly, then you're lost. Okay. Then you're believing a falsehood, even though you understood it incorrectly or misunderstood it. But if you misunderstand something, like Bernie Sanders, Juan Williams, and so many others have about what President Trump said about going to work when you feel better, okay, and claim he said, if you're sick, go to work. That's not what he said. He said, if you feel better, go to work. I wish I could find that, where he said that. But he's now basically saying, everybody stay home if you're feeling symptoms, but you should be self-quarantined for fear of getting the coronavirus. Now, isn't that a little bit like xenophobia? So for Bernie Sanders to keep thumping his faulty Bible about Trump, about him being a xenophobe, and how terrible it is about being a xenophobe. I've already shown many, many instances where xenophobia is a rather smart thing to be. And these days with the coronavirus, everyone is more xenophobic than ever before. So I think, and I know he won't do that, but I think Bernie Sanders should get off the xenophobe, faulty narrative soapbox. He should get off that soapbox and stop it, because now he's starting to sound like an idiot. In nowadays we got the coronavirus, and I've proven over and over again that President Trump is not a xenophobe. in the sense that Bernie thinks he is. We're all xenophobes before the coronavirus, and now that we're dealing with the coronavirus, every one of us is a more xenophobe than ever before for fear of catching it. So I think Bernie Sanders should get off that damn soapbox of erroneous ideas about President Trump. Because hell, if, I'm super xenophobic now. I'm afraid to touch anybody. I'm afraid to hug anybody. I'm just keeping my distance from people. Self-quarantine. Hello, anybody home? Think. We're all xenophobes now, even more so than ever before. Schools are closed. Events are closed. Think please are canceled. We're not allowed to have visitors here anymore until the CDC and the Board of Health gives us the all clear. We can't even have family members here to protect each other, to protect this community. We're all xenophobes, so Bernie Sanders should stop it about the xenophobe nonsense. Get off it. It's old. It's so old it's growing cobwebs. It's no longer applicable. He's now sounding like an idiot. And he just admitted that to not close the border during this crisis. That is pure insanity. And you saw that influx of people coming in. And you see what's going on in South Korea, in Italy, in Iran, in China. But I just saw a map and it's all over the place. All over the place. And you want to keep the border open so anybody can enter the country at any time and nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows if they have symptoms. That's what you want, Mr. Sanders. And you know what? We have another candidate who's no better. Who is no better for a different reason. So I think Mr. Sanders is terribly reckless with the lives of Americans. He's got a lot of information wrong. I was listening to part 1 of this town hall before I got to this part because I wanted to, include, his little soundbite about not closing the doors and keeping a wide open door for whomever wanted to come into our country at any time unseen or unchecked. But as long as we're talking about this and the fact that he just shot himself in the foot with this. This is totally reckless. We're trying to contain the virus, not add to it with unknowns. Just open the gates. As another term, abolish ICE. Abolish ICE. That's another talking point. That's another thing they want to do. abolish ICE. Okay, we're in the midst of a coronavirus crisis, an international health risk of a possible worldwide plague. Okay, with so many countries, and you want to abolish ICE. Okay, let's open the gates, open the borders, abolish ICE, get rid of all of the detention centers, get rid of all the agents, so there's nobody monitoring anything or anyone coming into this country. And we don't know who is next door to us. Who might have the coronavirus. So we're trying to deal with the cases that we have now. We don't want to add to it. Do you really want to add more cases to our country, Mr. Sanders? Do you want this the current number to grow? Getting rid of border security, that is to say, getting rid of those monitoring our border, just flip open the gates wide open and get rid of all the monitors and monitoring, and say, we don't care who you are, you're welcome in our country, we don't know if you have the virus or not. So there's a possibility you might have it, there's also a possibility you might not have it. But we won't know because we won't be checking. That's their mantra of abolish ICE and decriminalize border crossings. Open the borders. No, don't close the borders, like Sanders just said. So Mr. Sanders just shot himself in the foot. But he's not the only one shooting himself in the foot.
Peter Ducey's on the site with Joe Biden, where his rally will take place tonight. Hey, Peter.
Bill, good afternoon. It's rare to hear a swear from a major political candidate, especially on a major primary day, but earlier today, Joe Biden was confronted by a Fiat Chrysler worker about guns and something this plant worker had seen in a viral video, and Biden pushed back. And during pre-planned remarks about guns a few minutes ago, Biden further clarified his position on the Second Amendment, saying essentially he doesn't think the Second Amendment is absolute, like the First Amendment isn't if you yell fire in a theater. Something new, though, from Biden, his closing argument to Michigan voters last night. The former VP was flanked by new surrogates like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and he pitched them as the future of the party, not himself, the man hoping to be top of the ticket.
Look, I view myself as a bridge, not as anything else. There's an entire generation of leaders you saw stand behind me. They are the future of this country.
And tonight, Biden, the bridge, self-described, is going to address supporters here in Cleveland, Ohio. That is where voting is going to be taking place next week. And we are on a community college campus about 1.5 miles away from where Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination 4 years ago at the RNC.
Colleen Marshall, live in Washington, D.C. tonight, where just a few hours ago, NBC4 was the only Ohio TV station allowed one-on-one access with Joe Biden. And Colleen, the gun issue is a very personal one for the president, vice president, too.
It really is, Ellie, because they've been working on this, they say, essentially for 7 years. And what they're trying to do now is galvanize Americans to build an army of supporters to come out in support of the Obama gun control plan. And to do that, they rolled out the generals. Senior advisors to the president met with reporters and also Vice President Joe Biden. He wanted to talk about how the plan would work. and why Congress shouldn't do anything to block it.
So I support the Second Amendment. I just want some rationality brought into this.
Vice President Biden says the Obama administration has tried for 7 years to get Congress to take reasonable steps to keep guns out of the wrong hands. Now they're using executive action for a 4-part plan that will require licenses for anyone in the business of selling guns, hire 200 new ATF officers to speed up background checks, pressure gun makers to make smart guns that work with an owner's fingerprint, and to increase mental health funding by $500 million.
Critics are saying that your plans wouldn't have stopped even one of the mass shootings we've seen
Well,
around.
that's not true. That's not true. It would have stopped, for example, the shooting in South Carolina.
He says the Charleston church shooter and the Virginia Tech gunman would have both been stopped by a background check that flagged their troubled mental health history. But Congress will have to weigh in on the $500 million expansion of mental health resources and money to hire those ATF agents. One White House advisor said today that too many lawmakers put their short-term political interests ahead of the greater good.
The part that frustrates me is not their position, but their distortion of our position. If you notice, you read some of the websites here, we're saying what we're trying to do is confiscate your weapons, to take away your right to have a shotgun. This has nothing to do with any of that, what we're talking about.
That was not exactly the video I intended. I pretty much found it closest.
So to gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo! You're right if you have an assault weapon. The fact of the matter is they should be illegal, period.
So I guess we're not tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists when we say their ultimate goal is to take our guns. I mean, the man literally just said it. And to be honest, I'm not really surprised because that is what they do. When there isn't a tragedy, they'll say, we just want common sense gun control. But the moment there is a tragedy, it automatically flips to, bingo, turn them all in. They're always going to ask for more and more and more until there's nothing left. We know it, they know it, we just need the population of the country who's on the fence about gun control to know it. And guess what? You just heard it, straight from the horse's mouth.
Look, the Second Amendment doesn't say you can't restrict the kinds of weapons people can own. You can't buy a bazooka. You can't have a flamethrower.
Actually, that's exactly what the Second Amendment says. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It didn't say only handguns, it said arms. And they said very blatantly, shall not be infringed. So please, Joe, show me where else in the entirety of the Constitution you see the word shall not be infringed. You don't just get to ignore the last 4 words of the Second Amendment because it's inconvenient to your agenda. You all have been playing loose and fast with the meaning of the words well-regulated militia for decades. But I guess since it's a lot harder to misconstrue the meaning of shall not be infringed, you're just going to act like those words didn't even exist.
The guys who make these arguments are the people who say the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. We need the protection against the government. We need an F-15 for that. You need something well beyond whether or not you're going to have an assault weapon.
No, Joe. The guys who make those arguments are the people who want the most effective means to protect themselves and this country. And the Second Amendment was written to guard against people in power like you who say tyrannical shit like,
say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo! You're right if you have an assault weapon.
The sad thing is, Joe doesn't realize he's literally telling the American people that we should just accept being a slave to a tyrannical government, and then also doing everything in his power to make sure we don't have the weapons necessary to fight against him and the government if they ever decide to become tyrannical. This is a pretty disgustingly scary mentality coming from someone running to become the president. You know, I find it ironic that in one breath, you say no one needs an assault weapon as if that's the most powerful gun in the world. But then in another breath, you say we'll need more than an assault weapon to fight against a tyrannical government. Hell, sounds like we need more than an assault weapon. Considering the whole point of the Second Amendment, was to put the people in the best position to check their government. But you've spent your entire life being an elite in the government. So it shouldn't shock anyone that you don't think the people you see as servants should have the tools necessary to check your power. And riddle me this. If we're going to need more than an assault weapon to fight against a tyrannical government, why do you even care if we have them in the first place then? I mean, they literally make up less than 1% of the gun deaths in this country, so us having them is of no consequence to you, right? Again, the goal is to completely disarm America. Today, it's who needs an assault weapon. And tomorrow, it'll be who needs a handgun.
So how would you deal with all the assault weapons that are already out there that people have?
What I would do is I would institute a national buyback program. And I would move in the direction of making sure that in fact, was what we tried to do, get them off the street.
But that's not confiscating people.
No, that's not walking in their homes, knocking on their doors, going through their gun cabinets, etc.
So people would be allowed to keep the weapons they already have?
Right now, there's no legal way that I'm aware of that you could deny them the right if they had legally purchased them. But we can, in fact, make a major effort to get them off the street and out of the possession of people.
The level of double talk in this interview is mind-numbing. He literally said at the beginning of the video this.
So to gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo. You're right if you have an assault weapon. The fact of the matter is they should be illegal.
And literally 30 seconds later is saying he's not going to confiscate them, but have a buyback program. Then says he can't legally take the guns away from the people that have them legally, but we can make a major effort to get them out of their possession. He's literally saying, I can't take them legally, but I sure as hell am going to try to. What are you going to do? Send out a mass tweet and politely ask people to turn in their ARs to your buyback program? Stop insulting our intelligence, Joe. You don't have to go door to door because the buyback program that you're talking about will be mandatory, where if you don't turn in your guns, you go to jail. And no matter how you want to phrase it, that's a confiscation, which is super unconstitutional. But you already made it clear that you ignored the last 4 words of the Second Amendment, so you wouldn't know that. Hell, at this point, I'm surprised you didn't whisper Hell Hydra in Anderson Cooper's ear at the end of the interview. Right now, there's a culture war against the Second Amendment, which is why I need your help spreading our message to counter their message.
Okay, Mr. Biden, let's get rid of all the guns off the streets. That'll protect our citizens. That'll make sure we don't have any deaths on the street by unstable people. Right? I'm sure that'll stop all the deaths by unstable people having a weapon.
Fox News alert now, this one coming from overseas, where British police are treating a New Year's Eve stabbing attack as an act of terrorism after a man shouting "God is great" in Arabic stabbed 3 people, including a police sergeant. This was in Manchester, a railway station there. Police arrested that man on suspicion of attempted murder and conducted a search of his home. Jackie Heinrich joins us with the very latest. Jackie, what are police saying over there?
Well, Blake, police say they don't believe there's any wider threat, but of course this happened in the same city that 22 people were just killed 8 months ago at that Ariana Grande concert, that arena nearby, so it really has shaken that community hard. It happened as people were heading out for New Year's Eve celebrations at Victoria train station in Manchester. Police said they got a call about a man armed with a knife. Officers tackled him, but not before 3 people, including an officer, had been seriously hurt. The chief constable spoke today saying that attack has shaken that city after the suicide bombing at last year's Ariana Grande concert. And this morning, police searched a nearby address where they believe that suspect had been lit.
Gee, a suicide bombing. But there was no gun, right? There was no assault weapon. Let that sink in. At that concert, there was no assault weapon. And no one was hurt, right? Hey, it was a suicide bomb. That's not an assault weapon. So yeah, let's get the assault weapons off the street. That'll fix it. I don't think those concert goers agree with you, Mr. Biden. that taking away assault weapons is going to make them safer. That's all I want to say. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And food for thought for you guys. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.